You probably remember learning about some invertebrates having a form of growth typically called discontinuous. And that's in reference to the distinction between the way you and I, as mammals, grow, where we pretty much just get larger and larger with no discrete stages between our life stages. Discontinuous growth is somewhat misleading because it sort of implies that there's no growth at all, but that's not quite right. The reference here is that growth is in discrete stages. And so this is most exemplified by holometabolous insects, where the different life stages have very, very drastically different physical appearances. We, of course, refer to these as instars. And in the case of the holometabolous insect, there is a distinct pupal stage, which looks very, very different from the adult stage. But to say growth is discontinuous is not quite right, in that these are discrete stages, but within the stage, there is still some level of growth and it's continually growing, just that we don't see that in that outward appearance. And throughout this module, you're going to be learning a little bit about some ingenious ways that insects are adapted so that they can retain that outside external exoskeleton while still making the most internally. Some of the things you will recall about discrete growth is, again, that there are phases that have very well defined time, particularly driven by temperature. And in the case of, say, this bloodworm that eventually becomes a midge, in this case, you can see very distinct juvenile phases, which we call instars. Then there is a discrete pupal phase that, even though in this case it kind of looks a little bit like the juvenile phase, but it is physically distinct and it eventually becomes the adult. At specific points between these stages, there's of course eclosion, which is it's ecdysis when they shed. Eclosion is in reference to coming out of something. So, like in the case of the egg, it's hatching out of the egg, and like in the case of the pupa, it's sort of emerging out of the pupa. So we refer to those processes as eclosion. Ecdysis really is pulling the outer skin away, and then getting larger. And that again happens at discrete stages. And if you look at the intermolt period, so that's the period between molts, there is a phase called apolysis, if you'll remember, that sort of precedes the actual ecdysis event. And it's crucial that when you think about apolysis, there's a series of internalized events happening. And the key to take away here is that it's going to cost a lot of energy. So this is a time when the insects become sensitive, but they are metabolically hyperactive, is how we would describe this phase here, as it prepares for an important process of ecdysis.